Neale, it's so good to see you again, and welcome back to the Earth Keeper Summit.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here with you, and I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to share some thoughts with you again.
Thank you. You know, Earth keeping is becoming so urgent these days when we're living in times of great transition, of global crisis, of war, of great despair that so many people are in today. And I'm so happy that we have a chance to hear your message during these tremendously trying times that we're living through, Neale.
Well, it's a nice thing for you to say, my friend. May I say this in response? It's not my message. Honestly, I don't want people to think that I imagine myself to be some kind of a great teacher or some kind of a wisdom-filled human being, because I'm not. I'm nothing even close to that. But I did have the unbelievable privilege, the wonderful honor of having a conversation with God. So everything that I am sharing here with you and with people all over the world, whenever I talk, is what I was told, what I was given to understand, what I was allowed to understand from my communication with the divine. And let me add, before we go further in that, my friend, that everyone is having a conversation with God all the time. That is, I believe there is a higher power. I believe there is an entity that we call God. And I believe that God is talking to all of us all the time. The question is not to whom is God talking? The question is who's listening? And because none of us, I shouldn't say none of us, but the smallest number of us are actually listening, that's why the earth is in the kind of trouble that we're in right now.
So, Neale, what kind of messages are you getting from the divine these days? I know there's an eternal message of love that you find in every tradition everywhere in the world. And at the same time, there's very specific guidance that we're being offered as a humanity today. Can you give us a sense of what that guidance is about?
Yes, I sure can. I've been told that we are, I love your word, guided. We are given the guidance to take care of ourselves and of our home, which means, of course, our planet, our Earth, and to take care of our souls as well. The aspect of us that most people do not pay enough attention to. You know, there's a central question in life, Alberto. The question in life that we are being invited to ask is, who are we? Really, who are we? The solution to our problems on this planet would be easy to find. In fact, the problems would virtually disappear if most of the human beings on Earth understood who they really are. So what I am invited to share with people all over the planet is wake up each morning and ask yourself, when you look in the mirror, ask yourself a simple question. Who am I? Who am I? Am I this? Is this who I am? This physical body, like a bird in the sky or a fish in the sea, just another life form, physical life form? Is that who I am? Or am I my mind, maybe? Maybe my mind is a little bit more complex than the mind of a fish in the sea or a bird in the sky. Is that who I am? Or am I both my body and my mind? Is that it? I'm just another life form in physical world? Or is it possible, just possible, that I'm more than that? Is it possible that I'm a spiritual entity traveling in this lifetime with a body and a mind, but not without purpose, not randomly, not with nothing to do, but that I've come to the physical world to express and experience an aspect of myself that would stun the universe, that would surprise everyone if I actually stepped into that role and did that. But I need this environment in which to do it. No earth, no chance, no physical world, no opportunity for me to complete the agenda of my soul. So the first item on my agenda is take care of your own home. Take care of your planet so that you have a place to complete the agenda of the soul. And you know what's interesting, Alberto? All of the animals understand this. Animals take care of their home. We may not think of animals that way, but if you have a cat or a dog or any kind of an animal around you, you will see that animal will take care of its own space. And it will do so on a daily basis. It will not allow its space to be violated in any way.
Yeah, we seem to be the only creature that fouls his own nest.
Yes, exactly. You put it perfectly right. Because we don't understand really who we are and why we're here. So we have to stop it. We have to, and that's what God gave me, a two-word message. Neale, stop it. Stop. I like the phrase you used, stop fouling your own nest.
Yeah, that's pretty clear. I mean, there's not a lot of ambiguity in that message. And just to go back to what you said earlier, who am I? And I woke up this morning and I said, well, what am I going to be doing today? What am I doing instead of who am I being? And we get so trapped into the doing, that we end up living in this world of do. What do I do instead of who do I be?
Yeah, but you're right, and we are not human doings. We are human beings. And when we decide to be who we really are, individuations of divinity, we will automatically take care of ourselves, take care of each other, and take care of our home. So the first step is for us to embrace our true identity. And that's something that has been hard for human beings to do because we've been taught by our culture, by our stories, by our families and our tribes, by our, community. We've been taught just the opposite. And sadly, you know what's sad? Even our religions. And by the way, there are 4,200 religions on the face of the earth right now. Even our religions tell us a false narrative, a false story about who we are. And so they tell us about, that we are just minions in God's kingdom and we better do what God requires us to do. By the way, if you don't know what God is requiring, just check into one of the 4,000 religions. Each one has their own list, their own idea. One religion says you have to wear this, you cannot wear that kind of clothing, you have to wear this kind of clothing. The other religion says you cannot eat that food, you have to eat this kind of food. The other religion says you have to honor these days, you cannot honor those days. Everybody has their own story about what God wants, but most religions teach that if we don't do what God wants, God will punish us, judge us, condemn us, and punish us.
To eternal pain and flames and suffering.
Yes, and in some cases, for the most ridiculous so-called offenses. Let me share with you a story, Alberto. When I was 9 years old, I was told in my school, I was born and raised as a Roman Catholic. Now, I'm not making Catholics wrong, but I'm just sharing you one of their teachings. The priest comes into our classroom and teaches us about mortal sin. And the priest tells us that mortal sin is a kind of a sin that you have to confess. And if you don't confess your sins, and you should die on the way to confession. If you die before you get to the church with a mortal sin on your soul, you will be sent directly to hell. So I said to the priest, Father, can you give me an example? What's a mortal sin? I don't want to make a mistake. And the priest said, oh, sure, I can give you a simple example. If you miss Mass on Sunday, it's a mortal sin. I said to the priest, what? if I miss going to church one Sunday in my life, I'm going to go to hell? And God said, well, you have to, the priest said you got to confess the sin. But if you get, if you should die before you get to confession, yeah, you'll go to hell. So and by the way, the Catholic Church still teaches this. This isn't like 150 years ago. The Catholic Church still teaches that if you miss Mass on Sunday without a good excuse, if you're caring for a sick parent, okay. Or if you have to go to work, okay. But if you just go out to play a game of golf and decide to play golf on Sunday morning and miss Mass 1 week of your life, you are going to hell. You better race to confession and make sure you confess that sin, or you're in big trouble. Now, here's the problem. I raised the question, Alberto, I'm spending all this time on it to make the point. The point that I'm making is we believe in a God who is judgmental, condemning, and punishing. Now, that allows us to be judgmental, condemning, and punishing of each other. Because the Bible teaches us, all holy books teach us, to imitate, to become godlike, to act with each other as God acts with us. So the fact that religions teach such doctrines is not a small matter, because we're imitating what we think that God wants us to be like. Now, that has huge implications on this planet. It's why our earth is in such trouble, because we have been judgmental, condemning, and punishing of each other. It's going on right now, even as we speak, in countries around the world where people are killing each other, murdering each other, or conducting wars with each other, because we can't even agree on we can't even agree on a borderline.
Mm-hmm.
And because we can't agree where the borderline of our countries is, we're going to kill 37,000 people to make the point.
Yeah. That's a pretty dismal upbringing you had. I shared the same upbringing that, I went to Catholic schools and learned about a punishing God and an angry God and a wrathful God and a territorial God, that if you did not obey his commandments, you would be struck down. And then as an anthropologist, I spent many years with indigenous people. And I told them one time, I sat around the fire, we were in the Amazon, and they said to me, Alberto, well, tell me some of your stories. They had no television, so storytelling was the way you spent the evening. And I said, yeah, well, I come from a people where we were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. We were told that we were shamed because we were naked, and we were kicked out, and because we ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. And they said, wow, Alberto, you're the only people that were ever kicked out of the garden. None of us were kicked out of the garden. We still live in the garden in communion. We still speak to the rivers and the trees and to God. And that kind of woke me out of the trance that I have been educated into as a good Catholic.
Yes, yeah, and it is not to be critical of any particular religion. It's not just about the Catholic Church, as I mentioned a moment ago. Virtually every one of the 4,000 religions on the earth teach us of a God who is judgmental, condemning, and punishing. You better do things the right way. You better believe in God in the right way, or you're going to hell. So, how can we expect human beings to behave with each other in a sweet, kind, caring, compassionate, understanding, and forgiving way if we can't depend on God to do the same thing? So that's the beginning of the problem. But if we understand who we are, if we understand that I'm not this, I'm not just a body, I am a spiritual entity that has a body, then my whole perspective changes. And I can suddenly realize, like the people in the Amazon, I can talk to the river also. And if I'm really wanting to hear, I can listen to the river talk back to me. And I can hear the river say, take care of me, my beloved child. Take care of me, and I'll take care of you. Let's take care of each other. That's what Gaia, that's what Mother Earth is saying to us right now. If you take care of me, I'll take care of you. But you're not taking such good care of me. Please wake up and take care of me, and I'll take care of you.
That's so beautiful, Neale, and that's so true. That is so true. You know, when I was in college, I was studying biology, and I learned that, you know, that Gaia, that the mother cares about her species, but she doesn't care about her individual members of the species. She cares about humans, but she doesn't care about you or I. We're collateral damage in this whole story of accidental evolution, but when you find that, when you talk to indigenous peoples, when you talk to primary peoples, they say, no, our mother looks after each and every one of us if we look after her. The very same thing you said now about the river, saying about the earth, about Gaia, saying, take care of me and I will take care of you. She has a personal interest in each one of us. And not only in the species, we're not the collateral damage of evolution. We are an intrinsic, important, essential participant in this extraordinary dance of creation and of life that we're part of and co-creating with.
I couldn't agree with you more. I agree with every word you've just said. And the question in my mind is, what will it take for the largest number of people to embrace the wisdom that has just been shared here?
Well, if I heard what you said at the beginning of our talk correctly, you were saying that we had to discover what our true nature is, what our real nature is.
Yeah, I think that's the answer that I was given. I was, I guess, asking a rhetorical question because I know the answer that I was given, but I was kind of curious to see whether other people who are listening to us right now might agree with the same answer. The answer that I was given is that if we embrace our true identity, if we step into the living of who we really are, then the problems that human beings have created here on the earth would disappear virtually overnight, but that most of us don't really know who we really are. I was told in my own personal interaction with the divine, and again, I want to repeat, I don't think that I'm the only person having this experience. God has made it very clear to me. God said, I talk to everyone all the time. So it's not just you, Neale. Don't think you're special, but that God is talking to all of us using every device available. But here's the message that I received. Neale, you and every other sentient being in the cosmos, not just on Earth, are an individuation of divinity. You're an individual expression of God. Now, you know, when I say this in front of an audience, a large live audience in the room, somebody in the back of the room will say, oh, Neale, are you trying to say that you think that you are God? I said, no, wait a minute. That's not what I said. What I said was we are individuations of the divine. And, you know, and I was given a wonderful metaphor to help me understand that. God said, Neale, your relationship with me is the same as the relationship of a wave to the ocean. When you are looking at a wave on the ocean surface, the wave is not something other than the ocean. The wave is not separate from the ocean. It's simply a glorious, beautiful, powerful, arising individual expression of the ocean. And the expression is glorious and wondrous. And when that expression is complete, the wave recedes back into the ocean whence it came to express again on another day, in another way. And that is precisely the relationship that you have with the divine. You are not separate from God. You're not something other than God. You're an individual expression of the only thing there is, which is divinity. But if you know that and begin to allow yourself to experience that, then you will express that in the decisions, choices, and actions that you take on earth. Here's what's sad about that. The few people who have actually done that, who have actually said, I am an individuation of God, we have crucified. We kill them. Or at the very least, we accuse them of blasphemy, heresy, and the highest ecclesiastical sin. And so we have to let go of our idea that it's not okay to be an individual expression of God. We need to embrace our true identity and then treat each other in the same way. That when I see you, I see the divinity expressed in you. And then in all living things, animals, yes, that bird in the sky, yes, that fish in the sea, the tree in your backyard, the river that we talked about a moment ago, that when we see divinity in everything and treat everything as if it were divine, especially this planet, when we treat this planet as if it were an expression of the divine, suddenly everything changes in the way we interact with the planet itself and with each other. You know, it's really quite as simple as that, Alberto. It's very, very simple. And people who do live that way, and you mentioned some of those who live that way in the Amazon, what's interesting is people who actually live that way live wonderful, love-filled lives.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Neale. And that's, I had confirmation of that recently. I was reading the story, I'm sure you've seen it, of the 4 children that were lost in the Amazon for 6 And the eldest was 13, and then a 9-year-old, then a 6-year-old, and a 1-year-old baby. Their airplane crashed that the mother was in, the 2 pilots and the mother died, unfortunately, and the 4 children were left to fend for themselves in a jungle full of jaguars, full of poisonous snakes, full of mosquitoes. And for 6 weeks, they thrived. They found them healthy, well-nourished. They had no food to live on. The jungle, the mother looked after them. They were the children of Gaia, and Gaia looked after them with love, and they were inseparable from the divinity around them, and they were nurtured by those holy foods and holy waters that they found that for many of us would have been so threatening and so terrifying. And so, we would not have perhaps survived the way they did.
Yes, that's a wonderful story.
And we attribute it all, of course, to their skill that they learned as indigenous people how to survive in a hostile environment. But that's not what they teach young children in indigenous communities. They teach them that the nature is their mother, that the Amazon is friendly, that the Amazon is the garden. It's not a hostile place full of poisonous snakes. It's the garden that bears everything that they need to thrive. And here, what proof, what evidence, huh? Extraordinary.
Yes, if you want to find out where is the hostile environment with poisonous snakes, go to Wall Street.
Yeah.
Just a little joke, folks. Just having a little fun.
Neil, you say how God is speaking to all of us, but we've stopped listening. There's so much noise in the world today. I got up this morning, I meditated for a few minutes, then checked my emails, checked my text messages, looked at the news. There's so much noise in the world that is keeping us separate from, that's drowning this dialogue that we can have with the divine. How do we break through this? How do we create the quiet places that we can hear that voice that's reaching out to us all the time?
I don't think that it's necessary to avoid or somehow stop with the technology. And I read the news every morning. I want to know what's going on in my world. I do the same thing you do. I wake up in the morning, and I check my email, I check my texts, I check the news, but I don't let that technology stop me from staying connected with the divine. In fact, it encourages me by giving me more reasons to stay connected to the divine. And not all news is bad news. Every so often there's good news as well. So I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know, as they say, what is happening in our world. So I'm not going to suggest to anybody that we should throw away our cell phones, get rid of our computers, and ignore technology. No, it's important to be aware, to stay abreast of what is occurring in your world. Then you can speak with intelligence, with clarity, with understanding, not only about what's going on, but about what needs to occur to stop the aspects of what's going on with which we no longer agree. So, you know what? Information is important for us to have. But the trick is not to let our technology, not to let all the incoming data block our communication and our connection with the divine, but to allow that connection to be established as the most important priority. I love what you said. I heard you say, I listened carefully. You said, I wake up in the morning and I meditate. And then after I meditate, I check my email, check my texts, and check the news. You didn't say, I get up in the morning and immediately run to the computer and check the news and check my email and check my texts. You said, I meditate, which is exactly the priority that will allow us to stay connected to the source of the greatest information that we could possibly use. But my friend, I'm reminded of this saying, knowledge is power. So stay connected to your world after you reestablish your daily connection with the divine. Through, by the way, your soul, because your soul is divinity within you. All of us are three-part beings, not just body and mind, as I mentioned a while ago, but body, mind, and soul. And the soul is God in you. The soul is the spirit of the divine that lives within every sentient being. So it's really quite simple. Stay connected with your world and stay connected with your God, and you then are in a position to be a powerful influencer on this planet. That's, by the way, what this summit is all about. The summit is all about how to stay knowledgeable, aware, and how to stay powerful. Don't give up your power. Use it.
Yeah. How to stay engaged, remain engaged, because this is our monastery, is the world. We cannot go up to the mountaintop any longer.
And we don't even need to. We don't even need to go to the mountaintop. I love it. I love what you just said. What a wonderful way to use words. This is our monastery.
Yeah.
Wow. There's a book title in that. I should write a book titled "This Is Our Monastery," and you're not getting any of the royalties.
Yeah, absolutely. You got it. That's yours. You know, as an anthropologist, you learn when you study religions that there are 4 steps to religion. The most primitive step is that God is out there, and we must make sacrifice, blood sacrifice, burnt offerings to the God out there to protect us from our enemies. And I remember going to Catholic school as a young boy, going to Mass and saying, "Protect me from my enemies." Then the second step is to understand that God the divine can be within you as well. That's a great awakening. And then the third step, that the divine or God or spirit can act through you. And we know some wonderful healers and religious beings that understand that spirit can act through them. God, the hand of God can act through you, and you can bless and heal others. And the fourth step is that God can not only act through you, but God can act as you. The divine can act as you. Which is what you were telling us a little while ago, that, but this fourth step is that you are the divine disguised as Neale. And when we recognize the divine in each other, then we help to awaken that awareness in the other. It's fascinating how, when you go to the Eastern traditions, namaste is I salute the divine within you. That helps the other remember that they are that's the spirit of God is within and acts as them, not only through them. And that's where you were starting from. You started our conversation from that point of view. Wake up, realize who you are, and then that is residing in the power of your being. And that's these are such important words for us today when we feel so disempowered in the world, and what this summit is about as well.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I love those 4 steps. I never, I'm not an educated person. I didn't go to college. Well, I did go to college for about 3 months. My father insisted that I go, but I couldn't apply myself. And so I dropped out of school. The dean of men invited me to leave. He said, Mr. Walsch, this institution is for people who really want to go to class and want to learn something. Since you refused to go to class, we're going to ask you to leave the school. So I was invited to leave the University of Wisconsin, and I did, and I never went back to school. So I'm not educated. I don't understand the things you understand. When you told me that wonderful 4-step process, oh, wow, I'm going to have to make you send me that list of that wonderful 4-step. All of you in the world who hear this, who want that 4-step process, send a note to Alberto and he will send it to you.
Absolutely. Well, you're inviting us to be in that 4th step, to acknowledge, to recognize that divinity within, and you're proposing that can be one of the great solutions to the dilemmas in our world, or perhaps the great solution.
Yes, I call it the God solution. And I've written a book by that title. Speaking of books by a title, I actually wrote a book, my most recent book, called The God Solution. And the God Solution says that most of the human-made problems that assail the human race could be solved if we simply changed our definition of the divine. If we gave a brand new definition of who and what God is, then we would have to throw out all the old teachings. But it's a revolutionary new definition. It's theologically revolutionary. And it's a definition that almost all of the world's religions could agree on if they accepted a theological revolutionary notion. So what my book suggests is that God could be redefined in 2 words, in English, in 2 words: pure love. What if we decided simply that God is pure love? But you know what, Alberto? when I say this again in front of an audience, somebody in the back of the room says, "Oh, Neale. I thought I was going to hear something really exciting from you, something new. You're telling us that God is love. Everyone knows that God is love. Even the religions that have different dogmas, they all agree that God is love." And I have to explain to them, wait a minute, whoa, slow down. I didn't say God is love. I said God is pure love. Now my friend in the back of the room will say, "Okay, what's the difference?"
Yeah.
The difference is that pure love needs, expects, requires, and demands nothing in return. Absolutely nothing. Not obedience, not adoration, nothing is demanded in return. You know, we can't even love the person on the pillow next to us that way, much less the person across the street.
Yeah.
Or the human being around the world. So the God solution is to love each other the way God loves us, asking and needing nothing in return. But that's not how we've learned to love. That we can't even love the planet that way. We demand that the planet give us what we want the planet to give us. We think we're supposed to have domination. God said have dominion, but not domination. We've decided to have domination over our planet, and by the way, over our planet's people. But as long as you allow me to dominate you, which I notice you're doing here on this program, I'm dominating the entire conversation. So I'm in good shape because I'm dominating the conversation. But as long as you allow me to dominate the moment, I'll be happy. But that's how I love Alberto, and that's how I love the person on the pillow next to me, by making sure that their trade is in my favor. You know, we say we love each other, but we're really conducting trade deals. Like nations have trade deals with each other. You know, countries have trade deals with each other. We do the same thing with other people. And on Valentine's Day, I send the most wonderful Valentine's card to my wife. Darling, my dearest wife, I trade you very much. And I will never stop trading you. I will trade you until the end of time. I'll give you what I got to give you. You give me what you got to give me. We can trade each other forever. But if you ever stop trading me, the deal is off. And we call that love. But when we love each other, and if you don't mind me saying so, when we love our planet, which, by the way, happens to be a living being, when we love our planet and each other without needing and demanding anything in return, then we've discovered the God solution, which is why I wrote a book called The God Solution, hopefully read by many people who will then come one step closer to solving our problems before we destroy the life that we've collectively created on this planet. That's why this summit is so important.
Thank you, Neale. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for the beautiful, beautiful work you do. Keep allowing God to love you the way that Spirit loves you so that you can share that love with everybody else. Thank you, my friend. And until
my friend, anytime you allow me to dominate the conversation, I'm with you.
Good.
But
good.
you have to let me dominate.